Drunk Dog Creative. I'm here to show you how to do a brand new fun fold design I've done. It's called the Floating Diamonds Fun Fold card. I'm going to show you a couple samples to give you the idea, and then I'll get into the tutorial. All of the instructions are on the blog post, and the link is down below the video in the description. And on that post are all the measurements you need and all of the instructions. But I'll go through it in the video. But before we start, I wanted to show you a couple of samples that I made so you could see what the design is like. This is one I've made with the Berry Christmas Designer Series paper from Stampin' Up. It's polar bear themed and it's adorable, and the backs are as beautiful as the fronts. I fussy cut a couple of the designs out, but you can see when you open the card, you get that floating diamond effect. Peekaboo! And it's beautifully done. One of the issues that I do have with cards like this, though, is the fact that the design doesn't leave a writing space for you to write a clear message. It's designed to be, put out on the table or a shelf for people to see, but not for the message. So I've designed a secret pocket with a little pull-out message where you can write what you want or stamp what you want, and then it slides back into the card. All right, I'll show you another example. This one is a Hanukkah card made with the Shining Brightly DSP and some gold metallic embossing powder. I have Jewish friends and they do deserve their own card for their own holiday. So I've used the Celebrate the Miracle stamp set from Stampin' Up! To make this one. And again, it's the floating diamonds. And as you can see, I put the sentiment centered here because half of the menorah looked a little bit weird. So it covers the menorah until you open the card, and then you've got the menorah. And again, there is the secret message. And this is the third sample I made. While I'm a Stampin' Up! Demonstrator, I really do believe in using things that I already have in my stash that I may have bought before Stampin' Up! Or things that caught my eye that I like anyways. There's no harm and no shame in using other things. So what I have done is taken some Stampin' Up! Cardstock and the Scotty Punch that was available last year, and I've used some embossing folders to emboss white. So I've got white on white with red foil or real red cardstock in between. And this is the Scotty Dog Floating Diamond card. And as you can see, I didn't use a contrast piece in the inside like I did the others, but I used the same embossing folder for all of the panels. You can see that. And a slightly different embossing folder for the little triangles at the top. And the other thing I did is these diamonds, I've offset them in a more Art Deco pattern rather than the straight diamonds that are there. And I'll put the instructions on the blog for how to do that. It's one cut different, but you can have that little Art Deco look. So that's the Floating Diamonds card in Christmas and Hanukkah versions. But the great thing about this design is these panels, you can mix and match your colors of your cardstock any way you want, and you can embellish them any way you want. So for this one, instead of DSP, I used plain Night of Navy cardstock and then embossed them with gold powder. Whereas here, I used the backside of one of the DSPs that's only slightly, has a slight pattern of little stars or snowflakes on it. And for this one, I embossed everything. So you can make this your own for any season, for any occasion. It's a great basic card shape that you can then do whatever you want with. So give me a second and I'll move over to the workspace and show you how to put it all together. Let me take you through the cut plan. The card base is going to be 10 inches by 7 inches, and you're going to score it at 5 inches, which is in the middle, and at 2.5 inches. That forms your front. Then the mats for that card base, your mats are going to be 4.75 or 4 3/4 inches across and 6.75 or 6 3/4 inches tall. And the other two mats, they're going to be exactly alike, and they're going to be 2.25 or 2¼ inches by 6.75 or 6¾ inches. So you'll cut 2 of those. So those are your mats. Then the card fronts, and they're all card fronts because all of them will show. The right panel, so the right side card front panel, is from one of your designer series paper or DSP or patterned paper, whatever you call it. I've named it DSP 1. This will be 4 5/8 wide by 6 5/8 tall. Then the middle column, which in some of the cards I've used a contrasting DSP, in others they may be all the same. That's up to you. I've called this the middle column front panel. This is 2 1/8 inch wide by 6 5/8 inch tall. And the left column front panel, which is the DSP 1 again, is the same size as this one. It's 2 1/8 wide by 6 5/8 tall. So that's your card front all done. Then we have the diamonds. So if we look at the large diamond, the diamond base is 2 7/8 inches by 2 7/8 inches. The mat is 2 5/8 by 2 5/8. And then the front, which is a DSP, and it can be one of the ones you've already used on the card or a third one. That's up to you. 2.5 inches by 2.5 inches. And they layer on top of each other like that. Then you need a support block for the large diamond. And my support block is 4 inches wide by 2 inches tall, and it's scored at 1, 2, and 3 inches. Then we've got the small diamonds, and these are both alike, so you cut 2 of each piece. The diamond base is 2.5 by 2.5. The diamond mat is 2 1/4 or 2.25 by 2 1/4. And the diamond front is 2 1/8 by 2 1/8. And you do 2 of those. Now, one of the options I did was the Art Deco diamond, and I'll come back to that later because that's a slightly different cut plan. And those instructions are also in the blog if you want more information on that. And then the last piece is the sentiment for the front. So the sentiment mat is 3 by 1. And the sentiment front is 2.75 by 0.75. But this is one of those things where you can make this any size or shape you want that you think looks good on your card. This is just what I've used for these cards, but you can use anything. Now, the last piece in the cut plan is if you want to include the optional secret sentiment panel, that panel needs to be 3.75 wide by 5.75 tall. And the other thing I've done is added a tab to it to pull it out. Now, I have a really nice little tab punch by EK Tools. You can fussy cut something, you can use dies and fold them over. You can do a tab however you want. But it is helpful to have something to be able to pull that paper out by. So that's what I've done for that. Now, the next step I usually do is to score my folds. So I'm going to fold the card along the normal fold line, the 5-inch fold line, and I'm going to use my bone folder to crease it. On this particular card, it gets a little thick, so you really want to crease these well. And then I'm going to turn it so the way I would normally open it, and I'm going to fold that next score panel back, and then really open it, and then score that, just to make sure you're opening it the right way. So the idea is your card front now looks like that and opens like that. And then I've got the large diamond support. I want to fold and score. Sorry, fold and use the bone folder to sharpen each of those score marks. And that's going to form your mechanism for supporting that middle floating diamond. This next part is really just about affixing your front panels to your mats. Now, if you're pretty good at lining them up, you can use a tape runner. If you're not, you can use glue, which gives you a little bit of wiggle room and wiggle time. One of the things you have to be careful of is if your patterned paper or your DSP has a pattern that goes a particular way, like it's not symmetrical, then you need to make sure that you line these up the right way. For instance, the bear prints go in different directions. Now for me, for this card, I'm totally fine with that. I could have cut this one to go that way, but I actually wanted them to come from two different directions. So just, you know, if this is upright, but I had cut it so the pattern went horizontal, it might have looked a little weird. So just be careful that the direction you cut your DSP in is the direction you want that pattern to sit. So I'm just going to glue these pieces on. So I'm just going to use my Stampin' Seal to affix these to the glittery board. And sometimes glitter board doesn't like tape runners. If your glitter board doesn't, then use glue. And I'm going to, again, make sure that is the way I want it. I'm going to line this up on the grid and use the grid to help me align it, to try and get it nice and even all the way around. If you're not confident in doing this part, go ahead and use glue so that you can reposition it. So here's my panels glued on in the directions I want them to go. Then I'm going to actually glue them onto the card base. Exactly the same way. Use tape or use glue, whatever you prefer. Now, if you're going to put the secret panel in, this is really important. You have to leave this edge unglued. So whatever your, go that way. No. So whatever your right edge is, the outside edge, you have to leave that unglued because the panel, if I put the glue on these three sides, the panel is going to slide in there. So I want to make sure to leave that edge unglued. So now that forms a pocket for me to slip that secret message into. If you're not going to do that, just go ahead and glue that. So why do I use the secret message? Well, this card design means that this really isn't an area you can write on. And one of my pet peeves with fun fold cards is not having somewhere to write a message, except maybe on the back, which just personal preference I don't like. So I've designed this that I can put a message panel inside and they can pull it out and see it. I love this Berry Christmas DSP. It is so much fun to work with. Obviously, my grandkids are getting these cards, so it's a little extra special, and I think they're just wonderful, beautifully patterned papers, especially for kids or for big kids like us adults who still act like kids at Christmas or every other day of the year, which is totally fine. So there's your card base built. That's how it looks closed, open, part open. And the next thing you're going to do is put your diamonds together, large and small. So again, just using adhesive or glue, but again, be careful of which direction your patterns are going in. I cut them specifically so that they would angle. Had I wanted them to go up, I would have cut the square a little differently. I find this grid paper so useful for lining things up. I used to be really bad at this, but now that I've got the grid paper, it is much easier. So there's your 3 diamonds done. And the next step is to put the large diamond support on the card. Now for this, I'm going to use a ruler. I'm going to turn the card this way, and I am going to measure 2.5 inches from the very edge of the card. But I'm going to make my pencil mark just a tiny bit in from that so that the support covers my pencil mark. But there's my 2.5 points. I'm just going to come in a little bit from that. And I'm going to do the same on the other side. 2.5. All right, so that's where I know I have to line up the support so that it's between those two. And this fold on the support aligns with the fold on the card. So what you want to do is fold this. So remember, it was 4 folds. Fold it so 2 flaps are in the middle. Then you're going to put some glue on that. And I highly recommend using glue and not tape for this bit. 1, so that it holds more securely. But 2, so you can reposition it if you have to. So you want glue on both of those panels. You can do one at a time if you want. I just find it easier to do both. And you're going to want to put this right in between those pencil marks and align that fold right with the fold of the card. Push down. If you get a little bit of glue on there, you can use a glue eraser later to brush it off. But what that does then is it forms the support for the diamond. But we want to lay that flat and we want that to dry right now. All right, so I'm back and I'm ready to start putting the card together. I just went away to stamp and emboss my messages. So I'm using the very cute photopolymer stamp set. It coordinates with this DSP paper. There's also a polar bear punch that punches out this bear. It's adorable. So I've used the Merry Christmas and the little gift from this set. And then I have the Courage and Faith stamp set. And my sentiment on my secret message panel is coming from here, just so you know where I got them from. So what I've done is I've also put my pull here, and this is from a Lawn Fawn set that was in my stash. I've affixed my tab, and then I've done my sentiment with the little gift. And that's the bit that at the end I'll just slide right in there. But I'll show you at the end. It does go all the way in. I also did my sentiment. And originally I was going to do white embossing on pink. But when I looked at it, I'm not 100% sure I like that. So I went ahead and did Berry Burst ink on basic white cardstock. And I'll see if that looks better once my diamonds are on. But let's go ahead and put the diamonds on. So the best way to do that is to keep this flat. And once again, you can see now what I said about it being all poppy-uppy. So I'm going to want to go ahead and burnish those ends one more time. And I'm going to want to just burnish this. And this, especially right in the middle there where it's all thick. So burnish that with my bone folder. The other thing I like about this grid paper is when you get glue and stuff on it and it starts getting messy with inks and things, you just tear it off and you've got a nice clean sheet. So the first thing I'm going to do is put my small diamonds on. And these are pretty easy to align. This top point goes right with the top point of that card, and the bottom point goes right on the edge there. And the same with this on the bottom. And they might overlap a tiny bit in the middle, and you kind of want them to. That's okay. So the other thing you have to decide is which direction you want your patterns going in. So I just play around with it until I'm kind of happy with it. And so what you're going to do is put your glue or tape only on that half. So I do turn it around, and I don't go right to the center because ask me how I've overglued before. But I do make sure it's just off center. And then again, if you can see, I'm just lining that point with the very edge of that crease and the bottom point with the very edge of the crease. and I'm pressing down. And if I've glued it right, it won't be glued on that side. It'll just be glued there. And then I'm going to do the same thing with this one. And I'm going to line that point right at the bottom and that point overlapping that one. And then I've got my front diamonds. This then allows me to figure out exactly where I want this diamond to go. And again, I only want to glue it to that half of the box because that part has to be free to move. So it needs to glue onto here, but not all of it, or that'll stick when that's closed. So what I need to figure out is if I have this with the point right up against there, I want to only glue from about here over. So from about that paw. So I'm just going to leave my hand there and flip it and just run the glue where my hand was. So it's only a little bit of it. And you want to kind of lay it down and then lay it flat to make sure that they all line up the way you want them to. It's not hard, but it can be just a tiny bit fiddly. And if you got a little glue sticking out, so you can use glue instead of a glue tape runner, but now I've got my 3 diamonds. Now, this is the fun part. You can decorate these diamonds any way you want. And this is why on some of the cards, I used plain cardstock instead of a patterned one. But I'm going to do something a little special with these before I add my sentiment. So I've got penguins. And if you hang around at the end of the video, I'll show you how I made them. But I am going to be putting little penguins on these diamonds. And you can just play with them and see, like, if you want them at an angle, if you want them up and down. I think this guy would look really cute kind of peeking out. But you also have to be careful that when you open the card, it doesn't look weird. So sometimes it's better to just offset it a little and do something else. So I'm going to affix the penguins to the card, and I am using dimensionals. If you've been watching my videos, you know how much I love these. But I'm using the black dimensionals to go on the black penguins. And they're super easy to use, and they just help pop it up off the background a little bit. So I'm going to put this little guy there. And I use my take your pick to just pull them up, and it just makes it so easy. I use this thing all the time. I absolutely adore it. It's one of my favorite tools. So when you're putting things on the big diamond, it's really best to kind of have the card half closed so you can kind of see how it's going to look closed and then open. So I don't want it all the way over. So I might have it just peeking out a little bit. And just put it there like that. Now I'm going to do something just a little bit special to these penguins. I'm going to open this, and I'm really hoping this works. I've got Snowfall Accents puff paint. I don't even know if this is still available, but this was one of my favorite buys last year. And a little goes a long way. So I'm just going to kind of go around the bottom of the penguin on the card and put a little bit of puff accent. I hope this works. I didn't try it beforehand. I'm going to get my heat tool out, and I'm just going to apply heat to that, and it should puff up to look like snow. So it makes a little bit of snow under him. I'm going to add a little bit more to kind of fill that in a little, and even kind of layer it over the penguin a bit. Should have heated the heat gun before, like preheat your heat gun. Okay, so now I've got 3 diamonds, 3 floating diamonds of penguins. So the next thing would be then to figure out where you want your sentiment. Now in some of these I've just aligned it to the same color matte or to the very edge, or I've put it right across the middle when I wanted to hide what was there until it was opened. So for now I'll just use the white one with just a little bit of tape on it so I can change it later if I want. So just put that on the backing. Now this has several layers. So what you're going to want to do is use a dimensional here and here, and then some glue there to make it stand up a bit more. So I've just gone and gotten my white dimensionals. Make sure I know which, yep. So on the Merry Christmas side, I'm going to put 2 of the dimensionals there and just a little bit off the center. And then I'm going to put some tape there, not right up to the edge because you want it to be able to float. So peel those off. And the idea is that it covers the join of the 2 diamonds. So you don't want the glue out on this edge, you just want it about there. All right, and that's the floating card made. Except I think I'm going to add a couple of embellishments as well. So I've got my little folder here with all my different adhesive things, and I've got some berry burst sequins, but I've also got, out of the September-December catalog, these ones that might go nicely with the snow theme. Just get these out. So these are the Faceted Gems Trio Pack. And these are the Berry Burst adhesive backed. Yep, I'm going to go with Berry Burst. I think these colors are just adding too much confusion to it. I'm just going to take a couple of these with my Take Your Pick putty end. And especially on this one, where I had to offset the penguin, I'm just going to put a couple dotted around. So that it still has some visual effect. And I don't think I need them on the front. I'm just going to leave them there. See how good that tool is for that? You just dot it and it picks it right up. So then if you are going to insert the secret message, you now have your little folder bit and you just wiggle it in. And just leave the tab sticking out a little bit. And then you've got your card all done. All right, so as you can see, I've done different styles of this card when I was designing it. And I haven't always used card base, the same mat, the same DSP for all of them. I've played around with them. So in the printed instructions on the blog, I've included a table that corresponds to each of these cards: Hanukkah, Scotty Dog, Polar Bear, Penguin, so that you can see how I've layered the different effects. So like I said earlier, the Hanukkah card has Night of Navy and Very Vanilla, but there's no DSP on the front because I used gold embossing from the stamps. The Scotty Dog is the one where I've created like Art Deco diamonds. Now, this will be on the blog too, but the secret to this is that instead of cutting a matte size and then a front size, you cut the matte and the front the same size as the matte size in the instructions. And while you center the matte, you don't center this one. You line it to the bottom point and the left and right edge so that it sits down more, but it's the same size. So you get that Art Deco effect. It's actually pretty simple. But this was, again, using mostly white that was embossed different ways. Obviously, you've seen this gorgeous little penguins that we just made. and that's in there too. And then there's the polar bears that I made for my grandson. And that uses Night of Navy and Balmy Blue. And the DSP from the Berry Christmas paper pack, which is the same pack that this paper came from. And that polar bear punch I told you about will cut this bear out from that paper pack. And I wish I had figured that out sooner because I fussy cut it and I could have used my punch. So if you hang around, I'll teach you how to do the penguins. How I made the penguins. I have the Penguin Builder punch from Stampin' Up, which right now is still available on clearance as of today, but I don't know how long it'll last. And it punches all 3 shapes that you need. Now, as you know, I always punch upside down so I can see exactly what I'm doing. But I've just got some scrap black cardstock, and I'm just going to feed it through so that I punch that bit out. It doesn't matter if it punches a foot out. You can just throw that out or create a penguin with black feet later. So I've got my black cardstock. Then I'm going to do the same with a scrap of white cardstock, but the other edge, so that I get this piece. So I've got the white, and then I'm going to punch 2 feet out of the yellow. Now you can see I've already done these for the other one, but you just put the foot in, and I just want 2 of those. So I just grab my pieces, and then I get rid of the waste scraps. I have a recycling bin right next to me. Move those away. So that's, you punch those 3 pieces out with your builder punch, and then you glue them together, and then I'll show you how to make the faces. Now you can also play around and do whatever you want with this. This is just how I do it. So I'm just going to put a little bit of my Tombow glue on it. And I'm going to center that on the black. See? I'm going to grab my tweezers to do the little penguin feet because they're really fiddly and tiny. So again, just a tiny bit of glue because you don't want it going everywhere. Just a little dot or squiggle of it. And you're going to put the foot down kind of at the bottom near the edge. Glue also allows you to move the feet around a little. You have a little bit of time to move them around before they get permanently stuck. So I highly recommend using glue for this instead of adhesive tape. They're pretty good. I think I need to move those. I did on the others. So when that glue dries, it should dry clear. So then I've got my basic penguin. Now what I did is I do have some Nuvo crystal drops in some different colors. So I took the black and the orange. You can use whatever colors you want. And with the Nuvo drops, you have to remember to just squeeze a little bit out first to get it going. And then I simply did 2 dots that were roughly the same size for eyes. And then I took the orange and just did a little line for a beak. That's it. The only tricky part is you have to absolutely let it dry, because until they dry, they can smudge and rub off, and it's not the prettiest look in the world when that happens. So just leave it alone to dry. You can carefully move it to another place, trying to keep it level so it dries out of your way, but let it completely dry. And then you've got penguins to add.